Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're doing JMA Friday today, having a detailed look at the weather for the coming month with the Japanese model and also the CFS V2 as well. This will take us off into the second half of September, so we'll be going into the autumn with this particular update. We're also going to have a quick look at the weather for the weekend, but I want to do storm watch later on today. That will deal much more focused on the weekend weather pattern, but we'll have a very quick look at it for this update. Now, before we get on with that, just very quickly to say about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages at gavsweathervids.com. Have a browse with widgets. Any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go and read the article. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages. They open out within the content, and then when you watch them, they'll close back up again. Thanks so much for getting involved. Thanks for doing that. So just very quick to start off with tomorrow's weather. We've got a pretty warm day coming up across England and Wales. This is suggesting temperatures to be approaching 30 degrees across some central and southern and southeastern parts of the country, going into the 80s Fahrenheit. I think this will be very much dependent on how much sunshine breaks through. It is possible that this is overdone on the basis that it's going to be quite sunny. If there's a lot of cloud around, as we've got today, then it will limit the temperature potential, of course, but potentially it's a hot day tomorrow down across the south and the southeast. We haven't had too many of those since that intense heat wave that we had right at the start of July. But the downside of this is that there's also going to be some heavy rain and thunderstorms around now through tomorrow afternoon. The greatest risk of that is going to be up across northern England and Scotland. You see from the blue colours there that there's some heavy showers, possibly some longer spells of rain, and risk of thunderstorms up there as well. We will update Stormwatch later and have a detailed look at this with some high-resolution models. And it stays unsettled as we go through into Sunday. We may bring a more persistent band of thundery rain in from the south and west through the course of Sunday. And in terms of the temperatures on Sunday, it's still pretty warm actually, with temperatures into the mid-20s, although dropping quite dramatically behind that band of rain. Just turn significantly cooler. I think we'll all feel cooler next week. So quite a lively weekend coming up with a lot going on. Could be high temperatures and also a risk of some heavy rain and thunder around as well. Come back to Stormwatch later on this afternoon, probably around 6 o'clock, something like that, for a detailed look. Right, let's get on with the month head look ahead, and we're going to have a look at the JMA first of all. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts, broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the week that we're currently in, the 21st to the 28th of August. Blue is extrapolating to low pressure, and orange, yellow, red, those sort of colours are extrapolating to high pressure. British Isles is just there. So what we're seeing for the coming week is that we've got a trough of low pressure. I'm going to have to change the colour. We've got a trough of low pressure sitting just to the west of the country, and then we've got a ridge going up to the east and the northeast. The jet stream is going something like this. So it's a fairly unsettled week coming up actually, with that trough quite deep and quite close to the country, throwing up rain bands. The flow could be generally from a southwesterly direction, so I don't think it'll be cold. In fact, there could be some warm air at times being pushed up into the south and the east particularly. But overall, it is an unsettled week coming up for the final sort of full week of August. We will be ending the month and ending the summer on quite an unsettled note. Signs of a change as we go through to the next weekly period. This is from the 28th of August through to the 4th of September, so going to the start of September, and we find the trough beginning to lift out to the west of us. It begins to ease off, and the ridge is developing more to the east and to the southeast as well, and the jet stream and the flow would go rather like that. So it could still be a little bit on the unsettled side out in the west, but for the south and the east, a lot of dry weather likely with that, I would think, and pretty warm as well, because we could be pulling the air up from a southerly, southwesterly source. Early September is usually a time when you tend to get quite a bit of dry weather and some late warmth, and I think that could be signs of that coming off if it does pan out like that. Let's go through to the 3rd and 4th weekly periods. This takes us from the 4th through to the 18th of September, so going into the second half of next month. The ridge is in over the country, so a lot of settled weather coming up with that if it comes off. Its position is changing a little bit, and overall it's centred ever so slightly to the west of us. So I think the flow is going rather like that, probably. It doesn't really show low pressure here, but I think there could be a trough within the 500 millibar flow over Scandinavia. And what I think happens here is that the high pressure sort of builds in over country, with time perhaps moves to the west. So although not a settled weather, it probably turns a bit cooler there on that one as we go through, particularly into the middle part of September. I'm sort of speculating with this because there's not a great deal to go on, but it does hint to me that high pressure through the early part of September is centred more or less to the east and southeast of us, and then with time sort of pulls over us and eventually goes to the west of us and allows cooler air to come down from the northwest. But a lot of settled weather anyway, could be very dry under that ridge. That's the Northern Hemisphere view. Let's have a look at the mid-latitude view from the JMA model. These are 500 millibar heights again, broken down into week periods, but with this one we see temperature and precipitation as well. So for the coming weekly period, we know we've got a very unsettled week coming up. That deep trough of low pressure centred just to the west, and the flow going in rather like that. The temperature anomaly is coming out a little bit cooler than average. I think that's probably a bit pessimistic. I expect it to be slightly warmer than that, but perhaps no better than average, maybe a little bit above in the east. But the model anyway wants it to be a bit cooler than average through the coming week. And a very wet week coming up as well, with rainfall anomalies coming out significantly wetter than average, and that does make sense with such a deep trough centred to the west of the country. Let's go through to the next week period. Again, this is from the 28th to the 4th of September. We're transitioning here, remember, so we're lifting the trough out to the west of the northwest a bit, and we're building a bit of a ridge to the east and to the southeast. This is Central Europe, just over here. What that means for the temperatures is they still look a bit depressed really, but I think this is very much on the pessimistic side. It's coming out around average or a little bit below, but I think that would be above average temperatures on the 500 millibar height anomaly pattern. Throughout this summer, the JMA has been indicating cooler than average temperatures than have actually occurred, probably down to the cold Atlantic Ocean that we've got sitting just to our west of us at the moment. I think that would be a warmer than average week coming up if it came off. And the rainfall is a lot better as well. We've lost all those wetter than average anomalies, and we've gone to average, maybe even a bit drier than average there, to be honest. And that does make sense again with that high pressure building to the east and southeast of us, but the temperature's a little bit odd on that one. The final 2 week period, again, remember this goes from the 4th to the 18th of September, and the ridge above average heights is right in there over country with those yellow colours. So the temperature anomaly is going cooler than average again. It's actually a cooler 2 weekly period than the sort of the first few days of September. Again, I think that's probably a bit on the pessimistic side. I would be surprised with a ridge in over the country in September if it was as cool as that. Again, what's happening, I think, is that the ridge is starting generally to the east and the southeast, and is probably finishing out to the west, so we probably do pull down some quite cool air from the northwest, certainly by the time we get through to the middle of September on that sort of setup. But I think for an anomaly over a 2 weekly period, that is a bit on the pessimistic side. I would be surprised if it came out as cool as that. And the rainfall anomaly, obviously with a ridge close to the country, we're in for a drier than average 2 weekly period. So once we get this sort of week out of the way that we've got coming up, and we do have quite a bit of rainfall for this coming week, it does look as though we've got a drying trend here as we go through into September, albeit with the temperatures not really all that much to write home about. The CFS V2 500 millibar heights broke down to weekly periods looks like this. The first week from the 20th through to 26th of August has the ridge to the east over Scandinavia to the northeast, but a deep trough in the Atlantic with the jet stream going like that. So it's a good representation of what the JMA was showing. Actually, that is an unsettled week coming up with that trough really quite deep out just to the west of the country. But then very similar to the JMA as we go through to the week of the 27th through to the 2nd of September, what we find through this week is that the trough is easing to the west and beginning to lift out a bit as this ridge up over Scandinavia starts to build in, and the jet stream is going rather like that. It would be turning drier and warmer with the air starting to come up from the south and the southeast. And then the next week period, 3rd to the 9th of September, shows again very similar to the JMA, with that ridge building in over the top of the country with those yellow colours. So high pressure is in control, jet stream is going something like that. So again, we're within a ridge of high pressure, almost centred over the top of the country. You would expect quite a lot of dry weather through that first week of September. And then we move through into the middle part of the month. This goes from the 10th to the 16th. And, well, this one just has a high pressure intensifying over the top of the country. So there'll be loads of dry weather with that. And because of the position of the high, it is centred just to the east of us. So I think we'll probably be bringing in quite a bit of warm air from the east-southeast. Of course, nights can get rather chilly under high pressure in September, so we have to factor that in. But overall, probably the flow, the air still coming off the continent, so it could be fairly warm and a lot of dry weather on the way with that one if CFS is right. The temperature anomalies break down like this from the CFS. The coming week actually being seen to be a bit warmer than average. I'm not sure about that. Could be a little bit cooler than that suggests. The next week period, going into the start of September, comes out warmer than average as well, and probably makes sense with high pressure taking over the pattern. The third weekly period, 3rd to the 9th of September, again we come out a little bit warmer than average, on the milder side of average anyway. This is the point where the high pressure is very dominant, and we do have to factor in that there could be cooler nights here, sort of offsetting warmish days, so we do have to factor that in. But overall coming out a little bit warmer than average, as we do from the week through to the 10th to the 16th of September. So quite a warm September being signalled here from the CFS V2. I think that's probably more in line with the pattern than the cool ideas from the JMA. And then finally, precipitation from CFS V2 the coming week is a bit wetter than average, particularly down in the south. Wet week coming up. Then it turns drier, or it transitions, it's a transitional period, transitions to a drier pattern from the start of September. We go through to the third week, and it's about average. It's losing the signal now, but with high pressure more or less in over the country, there'll be a lot of dry weather. And then the next week, again, very weak signal, 10th to the 16th of September, as you often find with the CFS V2 and its precipitation forecast. Nevertheless, with such a strong build of pressure around the country, I would say that is a dry week from the 10th through to the 16th. So I think we've got good evidence of a drying trend here as we go into September from both of these models. We're sort of in agreement with the pattern, which is that we start off quite unsettled through the coming week, and then we transition through to high pressure, particularly as we get through into September, as we often do in September. It's often an anticyclonic month, particularly the first half of it. Classic sort of September pattern, really, with high pressure increasingly influential into September. We've got a difference with the temperatures. The JMA is signalling quite cool temperatures for September, whereas the CFS is much more optimistic for a warmer month in September. And I think the CFS probably makes sense, really, with high pressure building in, although there could be some chilly nights, and it may finish up in a position where we're pulling down cool air from the northwest. I just do think overall the pattern suggests that the first half of September should be relatively warm. So an improving trend, if you like it, warm and dry for September, but quite a bit of rain coming up through the coming week, and particularly over the weekend, when there could be some heavy rain and thunderstorms. We'll have a look at Storm Watch later on this afternoon. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.